Hello. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to our first long-range facilities planning meeting. We're really excited to have you all here. My name is Danny Randall. I am your community liaison for the Escada School District. I was one of the people that was emailing you, harassing you to come tonight, so I really appreciate it. All of these people are going to be helping us run the meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and introduce them as they pop up and get a chance to talk to you guys. So before we get going, we're just going to go over some meeting norms. So again, welcome for joining us. We did a really intentional job of getting a diverse group of people to join us tonight. Within that's going to be people with a lot of different viewpoints, different perspectives, different ideas of what the future of Estacada should look like. So we just want to make sure that everybody is aware that we are all here to talk openly and provide space for everybody to participate. So with the participation, please feel comfortable asking questions. Raise your hand. There's different knowledge levels, different acronyms, all sorts of things that maybe don't make sense right off the bat. So feel comfortable raising your hand and interrupting with any questions. And provide your input. That's why you're here. We want to know what you think, what your goals are for the school, and then also allow a discussion. So let's not have people monopolizing the conversation. Make sure that we're allowing everybody to get a chance to speak. And then lastly, all of those things just get us to our goal, which is just like providing a productive meeting with an open dialogue and then getting all of you guys out of here at the time that we promised we would. So I'm going to hand over the mic to Mike.
Good evening. I'm Mike Ware, the Executive Director of Operations for the district. So what is a long-range facilities planning process? And again, why are you all here? Not just because of the tacos, right? So what that really does starts off with conducting a facility condition assessment. And that really starts this process. And then once we complete the condition assessment, we form a committee with stakeholders like all of you that represents our district, our community, our students, and really start diving into that condition assessment and identifying what is our goal as a district. What do we want to be in 5 to 10 years in the teaching and learning environment? Where is our capacity tights? Where are the biggest needs in our current structures and assets? And so what we do through this process of 5 meetings, is that correct, Maggie? Through 5 meetings is really identifying a potential package on what we would bring to our board eventually for a potential bond if we decide to go for one. But essentially, as Danny mentioned, this is very collaborative. The next meeting, we're going to dive really heavily into the facility condition assessment to find out where our total need is, where the difficulties of trying to address those right now, and then being able to form basically a long-range facility plan, which we would point to if we were successful in a bond. Even if we were not successful in a bond, it's a working document that we would utilize in facility maintenance and capital improvement projects to continue chipping away. So that's a quick high-level process of long-range facility planning, and I'm going to turn it over to Christina or Maggie.
This is a question any of us can ask.
Yeah.
You want to kick it
Yeah,
off?
so one of the things that we wanted to start with so that we could continue pointing to what we decide is what are our core values and how can we facilitate planning the support of these values. And so what I mean by that, or what I'm asking is, what do you all want out of this process? What is our North Star, if you will, as we're developing, as we're having discussions about facility planning? And if you have thoughts, please raise your hand. I need to bring over the mic because this is being live streamed. So we forgot to tell you about that one.
You guys want to talk as a group, like what do you want to see out of our facilities? What do you want for your kids? What do you want for your community? And ultimately, what do you want out of these meetings when we're planning for our facilities? So if you guys want to talk a couple minutes as a table group, maybe tell each other why you're here and what you're looking to gain out of this, and then we'll see if anyone wants to share out. We'll give you just a couple minutes.
Let's take 5 minutes. my stream? Oh, sorry, I said it, I'm like, oh no, I don't think I said it. I said it. That was okay? We're going to do 1 more minute, okay? 1 more minute. We'll do 2 more minutes per Amanda. Okay, we're going to bring you back. Hopefully that's okay, Amanda. We're going to bring you back. So Maggie's going to come around. Maybe if you had a spokesperson for your table, to be able to kind of highlight what you discussed. We are recording this as well, so we're not going to write anything down. We're going to come back, watch game film afterwards, and then be able to write that stuff down. The goal is to be able to come back to our next meeting with a summary of what each table is saying, and then compile a list or 4 or 5 core values that we want to again anchor on throughout this process. So as Maggie comes through, if you wouldn't mind, whoever's speaking, to state your name and your involvement, whether you're someone that works for the district, a board member, or live in the community, or a parent, or all the above.
Pointing at you.
Yep.
Okay. We talked about several different things. We kind of went around just to get an idea of who's who and just the perspectives, where everyone's coming from. We talked about providing safe facilities for all of our youth, and just having, we feel like some of the schools, specifically this school, doesn't have a very safe entrance and exit. Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Like at the high school, correct?
Here at the high school. Being proactive, not reactive, as far as handling growth that's going to be happening. I mean, it's definitely coming. We know that. And yeah, having that room for growth and creating like kind of a community hub. We talked about the high school kind of being that, but not really having the space for that. And that we kind of are, jamming into spaces. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That was a great start. Thank you. This table.
Hi, I'm Lori Huntman, and I have a child that goes to River Mill. We talked as a table about safe schools and having more technology at the schools. Also, at the last board meeting, we heard that the mini splits didn't get approved, and so what's the next option for that as classrooms get very hot? Also, if we do plan on a bond, what is the time from the bond to pass to when we could use those funds if we were to build a new high school? What's the timing on that? And then also, if a bond doesn't pass, then what is the next option? Also, we're running out of space at Clackamas River, and we do have the pods at River Mill, and how are those being utilized?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Some great questions for us to address throughout this process. Who is our spokesperson? John? Okay.
Hello, everyone. So our table's filled with parents, employees, and community members here. We talked about investments, money well spent for long-term, oversized buildings if we do rebuild or do additions to plan for the future, much like these folks said. Safety seems to be on everyone's mind. And most importantly, up-to-date buildings and schools, which involves everything from internet to playgrounds.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's talking over here?
You got it, Chris.
Cool. I'm Chris Stanton, representing parent, employee of the district. I live here as well, so community member as well. A lot of what we talked about was looking at facilities to be, one of the words was comfortable, in the sense that it is something where a student can feel, whether it be in not specific buildings, but all buildings, where when they're in class, the normal things that might distract the students, such as heat or too cold, isn't there, or safety mindset isn't there, because it's just, we're good. They can focus in on the other things. Other elements that came up were looking at, especially at the higher ages, more of a focus on CTE, so your trades, and having that as a higher priority when wondering about what direction we're taking there. Looking at the idea of, for me, one of the things I thought through is like thinking about my own boys, like what do they get from being in the district that allows for them when they're, if this is the top level of education they have, will they go out into our community and be productive, engaged, positive citizens, where they can choose to take in input and they have the skills to do that, to incorporate their own core values to make decisions, but they're making productive decisions based upon those values because they've learned how to interact with the world, whether they go through a trade after that or whether they go into university or neither, and then a diversity of education. So the idea of giving them opportunities, whether it be through tech, trade, field trips, facilities, that allows for them to engage in things outside of the building itself.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. And our last table.
Okay.
Miss-
Who's our
Mrs.
speaker?
Snyder. Helena. I think Helena wants to do it. Yep.
All right. Helena Snyder, the parent, community member. And a lot of our conversation, I think, is piggybacking on a lot of what everybody else said as far as, you know, we are mainly concerned with the growth and the schools being able to handle that growth. The technology side of it as well, piggybacking on that. I think that was really the bulk of our conversation. So, yeah, it's a quick one.
That's perfect. Thank you. So like I said, we will come back to this group next time when we meet to review what everybody kind of said, synthesize it or summarize it, and then as a group decide on what are our core values as we go through this process. And as we get to work into this process of long-range facility planning, there will be good discussions, and we just need to keep those values in mind. You know, if it's safety, if it's future planning and future-proofing our schools in a comfortable environment, then as we're building our packages or our basically our bond package, we need to keep those things in mind because some things will have to fall off the list. So that will kind of keep us moving in the right direction. So I'll move it over to Maggie on the population study.
Yeah, so a lot of what we'll be using here is the feedback that we get from you guys, but of course we want to provide data and information to this group as well. So some of it we'll be sending home with you a little bit as homework to look over because you're not going to be able to read through all of this information tonight. But the three components that we're going to be focusing on throughout this process is our facility condition assessment. You have part of that on the table in front of you. And that's really the nitty gritty. I heard a lot of you talk about, I want the school to be safe. I want the school to be dry. I want it to be secure. You know, these basic things. So that's one of the things here, the facility condition assessment, that professionals came in and they looked through all of our schools and they found the things that need to be fixed. And you're not going to find a brand new beautiful school in here or a pool or anything crazy. This is just the things that need to be fixed to ensure that our buildings are able to keep serving for generations to come. The next piece that we don't have at the table right now that we're still developing along with Portland State University, who does a lot of this work, is a population study. We got a population study about 10 years ago that predicted right through this year. And I will tell you, we overshot that population study by about 100 students, but for the most part, it stayed true to the trend of growth that we're seeing. So in a couple of meetings, we'll be able to bring in a population study for you guys to see just how much growth we're expecting in the Estacada School District area, because we know growth and capacity is heavy on your minds. And then the last key component that you'll also see at your table here is we want to hear from our community. We want to know where our community's at on this. So we did a community poll of 400 community members, statistically relevant, and we asked them, you know, what do you think the condition of our schools are? What do you support us going out for? What is your support for a bond? Because as you'll see in the facilities condition assessment, our schools need a significant financial investment. So we want to know how our community feels about potentially making a financial investment. So these three pieces will help you guys be able to have an informed discussion as we move forward. So we're going to send you home with them. They're also available to download on our website if anyone watching on YouTube or anyone else ever wants to download them. We really care about being transparent about all of our information. So you're probably wondering a little bit about, well, what the heck have you gotten yourself into? So here's the basic process that we're going to take you guys through tonight. Initial meeting, we're just getting familiar with this process, getting familiar with some of the documents, going to ask you some questions. In the next meeting, hopefully you guys will have had an opportunity to familiar yourselves with the FCA, the facility assessment, a little bit more. And we'll be able to dive into, you know, what did you see in that facility assessment? What do you think should be our top priorities? Because we know that this list is just overwhelming, and we'll be able to start prioritizing so that even if we don't pass a bond, we can address these issues as our budget allows for it. And then in the third meeting, we're really gonna finish that prioritization of the FCA, and then we're gonna start talking population. We'll be able to bring in our population study and see what type of growth that we need to plan for. Fourth meeting, we'll finish our population discussion and we'll start thinking, okay, if we were to bring a bond out to the community, what would we want to ask the community to help us finance? What do we think we need the community's help with providing in our schools? So we'll be able to start building a potential bond package. And then we'll do more community polling, just like you see right there. We'll ask our community, here's what this group told us is important in our schools. How does the broader community feel about that? And then our final meeting, we'll be able to get that community information back and see if this is where we want to end up in that package. So if you have any questions about that process, we'll be asking you some questions in a little bit. But of course, we're talking about bond a lot, so I want to bring up our Director of Finance to talk a little bit about that.
Hi, I'm Christina Irish. I'm the Director of Finance. And just kind of giving you an idea of where we're at, what our current bond rates are. So you'll see here, the permanent rate, that's been our rate since 1997 when Measure 50 passed. We will not be able to change that rate. That is our rate that you get on your property taxes. It's the certain section. The next one is a local option rate. We do not have a local option rate. That is, again, it has to be voted by the public, and that would go directly to our operating. So that could help us pay for teachers, classrooms. We could use that in our general operating. And then the bond rate. So our current bond that we passed in 2000, which will expire in 2025, is at 1.17. So our current amount that we are taxing the community is 5.3223. So just kind of giving you an idea and a comparison. Yes?
Can I just make a point?
Yes.
As you can see, we're at 4.14 on the permanent rate. Aside from Riverdale at 3.81, that is the lowest up there.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
And then just kind of related to academics. Oh gosh, do I got to talk on this thing? To tie it back to academics, of the Clackamas County schools, I think we're ranked number 4 in graduation right now, of which Westland, Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, what's the other one? Is it Oregon City or Canby? North Clackamas, thank you. And then us. So we're at the very bottom of this list as far as money goes, but our academics are far higher. And then the combined rate is on the far side, and we are second to the bottom still. So it's kind of interesting. Most of those school districts have passed at least one, if not several bonds, since we've passed our bond. So, sorry.
I like that he does that for me, makes it easier. And I do know Malala Rivers also, you can see they're below us, but they are also getting ready to go out for a bond. So any questions on that before I hand it off? Okay, I'm going to hand it back to Maggie. Oh, sorry.
Rate, or would it be a different rate? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. And we're going to kind of go over some of that in Maggie's next slides. It depends on the amount we go for and what we include in our package. So we did do some initial numbers for polling, but these are not necessarily our final numbers. It's just to get an idea of where our community's at.
Yeah, that tees me up really nicely for the next part of info, so thank you for that. So when we did our community polling, we wanted to ask our community, actual amounts that they would support. So here are the options, and I'll talk a little bit more about how much they cost. So we asked our community for 3 different price points. $109 million, which is a new high school and updates to all of our other buildings. And that would increase your current tax rate by $1.64 per thousand of assessed value. $60 million is a new elementary school. We know our elementary schools are bursting at the seams, and that would cost an additional 38 cents per $1,000 of assessed value for taxpayers that are homeowners. And then we did a bond option that doesn't increase your taxes at all because, again, our current bond expires next year. So we have a pretty unique opportunity to just take one of these options and smooth out that bond that's going to drop off. So $39 million that maintains your current tax rate, your taxes don't increase, they don't do anything. We're able to fix a lot of the things that you'll see on the FCA, but we are not able to get a brand new school. Yeah, Chris.
So with the 109 million, that is only for a new high school. That doesn't also include a new elementary.
Great question. So new high school, we do a lot of updates to our other buildings as well, but what we can do with a new high school is we move the middle school students up to the high school, and then that creates essentially a third elementary school. So it's just a different way of doing it, but we know our high school needs a substantial amount of work. Yeah, Denny. Where would the new high school be? New high school, great question. That's something that we would like to actually discuss in this group, but we have a pretty good amount of space right behind this building that we believe that we would be able to utilize for a new high school. Yeah.
When it says, like, for example, the $60 million one is an additional 38 cents, is that above the current rate that we're paying now, or assuming that's gone and starting from scratch?
Great question. So your taxes, what you paid this year when you got your property tax statement, you're going to see a 38-cent increase from that current rate. And as you saw on the previous slide, we're way at the bottom, so it would bump us up a little bit.
I just want to explain 38 cents per thousand assessed value of your house. Did I miss you go over that?
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people get confused sometimes too. Real market value of your house, way different than assessed value. It's definitely lower. So those are the bond options that we asked our community about. And here's what they told us so far. Here's their level of support. The blue is the yes, the red is the no. So you'll see this is just information so far. As we continue to have conversations with our community, this needle will likely move one way or the other. And that's what we want help in this group on. Which option do we start having conversations with about our community, if any at all? So as you can see right now, that new high school is the most popular, but we still have a ways to go. And you can find that in that packet here as well. Did I hear a question? When was this poll? This poll was a couple of weeks ago. So this is pretty brand new data, yeah. And then this is the last thing I'll give you tonight. I don't want to just blow your mind away with polling, but again, it's all there if you want to take it home and review it for some light reading. This is one thing that I think this group plays a really unique role in, is a lot of our community, if you can see, is that green line of they don't know what our facility conditions are like. And whether or not someone votes yes or no on a bond really hinges on what they think our conditions are. A lot of people aren't in our schools regularly. They're not coming in our buildings, and so they don't know what our schools are like, and we've seen that grow. If you can see that number, we've seen it grow quite a bit. So this is an opportunity to have conversations with our community about what the true conditions of our schools are and start educating and start having those conversations. And then, again, 32% think our schools are great. They think they're shiny and in fantastic condition. And then 37% acknowledge that, you know, our schools need help. So that is a brief introduction to polling. Again, we'll get into nitty-gritty more in future meetings, and you got all the information there. But I'm going to turn it over to Mike to answer some questions about facility condition assessment. But first, I want to ask you guys, do you have any questions about polling or anything that surprised you?
I just wanted to say I did the math. For the, let's just say your average, I don't even know, a new home in Estacada is $500,000. At that 38-cent additional, it's about $190 added to your property tax. So was just trying to put that into perspective.
I will say the average assessed value, and thank you for doing that math on the fly, that's great. The average assessed value of homes in Estacado we're finding right now are about $280,000. So that's the assessed value, because it's, of course, lower than the real market value. But yeah, it's an investment. There's no denying that. Yeah.
I was just curious where the 109 and the 60 million, where all of those levels came from.
Great question. You will see in, I believe it's in this packet, we have numbers on how much it costs to build a new school, a new high school. I'm talking a pretty modest high school is about $89 million. I believe a new elementary school is in the high $30 million. And then we need to factor in what we call soft costs, so paying the project managers and things like that, as well as we want all of our schools to benefit from this. So we're not just building one new school. Each school needs an investment. And then additionally, you'll see we have about $17 million in existing like fix-it needs. So we tried to build in the cost of building that new school as well as giving fixes to our other schools. Does that make sense? Okay. Great question. Any other questions? Yeah, John.
So if we do the, if the community decides to do the new high school, the $100 million bond, does that include any additions to the elementaries? I understand we're going to repurpose one building, but does that include any type of infrastructure?
Great question. 89 million about taps out, you know, our ability to build new structures. We'd build the new school. We would fix things at the other schools as well, but yeah, no additional structures. We do think that if we were able to repurpose the middle school as a third elementary school, that would meet a great deal of our capacity needs. So we feel comfortable with that. But yeah, it's tricky of wanting to get everything done that we know our schools need while also understanding that we want Estacadans to have a reasonable tax rate. So, okay, yeah, Chris.
And I know that this is like dependent on getting a new high school and whatnot. I know that there was talk of that back 40 going into field production and things like that for more sports arena and all that. Would there be additional locations potentially looked at for that kind of capacity as well? For the overall?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mike, do you want to talk on that at all? I think you're probably a good one to.
Youth sports. We don't want to lose that space. Now, yes and no. So like Maggie mentioned earlier, I mean, this committee is going to be discussing, do we want to put that high school here if we went out for, if we put that in the package? Or are we saying, do we want to push it further down? Or if we decided on the elementary, is there a different part of our community where the elementary is needed? So the discussion on where that goes really is going to be in this room for us to be able to present to superintendent and also our board. Yep. Yes.
Is the Summit Learning School involved in any of this at all?
Involved. Correct. So we did complete the facility condition assessment at Summit. Right now it's being, well, Eagle Creek, and right now it's being housed by Summit Learning Charter Center. You know, when we discuss those types of discussions, again, are on the table for this group to dive into and to really to see what we want to do. Okay?
Mike, it might be good to talk about the well and septic and why full-time use out there might not be.
Yeah. You probably know more than I do. Actually, John, you know a little bit more about that, don't you? The well and septic at Eagle Creek? Yes. Could you speak to kind of the capacity in terms of being able to use that at a full elementary level?
So problem we have at Eagle Creek with high capacity is the well, for one. It's a little over 300-foot well, but it doesn't have the capability to provide enough water for if we had 300 or 400 students in it flushing toilets. The septic, we have no issues with the septic. However, it is undersized for the building. When they built that in the 60s, for whatever reason, they didn't plan on 3.5 gallons per flush, which we use now. So, and that's needed in commercial buildings. So those are our two issues. We have invested quite a large amount of money in the well out there. We have it tested quarterly and everything, but it's just not able to, for the capacity to keep up to the need. Does that answer anyone's questions? Okay.
John's our facilities coordinator, by the way, so he knows everything about our buildings.
I do think it's worth adding too that Summit Learning Charter, you know, we enjoy having them as a tenant and what they add to our district and that additional educational opportunity. And then additionally, you know, being a partner with them, we receive some of the enrollment dollars from the students that are served there. And that has really enabled us to do some of these extra opportunities in our schools that our students are able to enjoy. PE, music classes, you know, all these robust things that we are able to enjoy as a district. And then one additional factor when we think about Summit Learning Charter is where the growth is occurring in our district. And a lot of the growth is occurring in Estacada proper. So when we think about building schools or having a campus atmosphere, we really want kids to attend what we call their neighborhood school, the school that is near their home. So those are additional considerations that we think about when we talk about Summit. Yeah.
Is there any other option? Oh, God. Options with the high school?
Not yet. That's something we'd want the committee to discuss. And so, yeah, so next meeting, it could be. I mean, again, this is our kind of sandbox, if you will. So the next meeting and the next actually 2 meetings, we'll have those discussions.
The prices for the schools, are they pre-COVID, during COVID, right now, current COVID?
It's current, and then we'll talk about escalation over the next 3 to 5 years. Right now, we put it at 5%, and then going down to 3% after about 5 years. The costs are current rates. I believe it's the high school. It's not, maybe in this report, $560 per square feet for, again, a modern, not a modern, but how would it, modest, thank you, modest high school building, okay?
One thing I do want to say on that too is we don't want to move towards a bond or anything like that before our community is ready, but we also do have this sense of urgency because we continue to see prices go up and the needs in our schools continue to grow, even as our facilities team does a really good job of trying to improve as we're able to. John?
Sorry. The high school, anything we do, I'm assuming involves AEC district-wide, regardless we're building new or adding on?
Like air conditioning, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Possibly, again, if that's a big need, we know that's a big need with our community and our students. And so we do want to consider that as a factor.
And that's built into the 85 million for the modest building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we know, we've seen it in polling, we've seen it in talking with employees that air conditioning is a big priority for our schools. So I think that would probably, I don't want to say what you guys will do, but I would assume that will probably be a higher priority as we start to build our list of what we should tackle. I do want to give you guys a couple of minutes just to talk as a group. Again, look over the polling and talk as a group and let me know what sticks out to you, what you have questions on, and then we're going to move on to our facilities assessment. So I'll give you probably 7 or 8 minutes. Okay, gonna give you guys one more minute to start wrapping up and deciding who you want to share out. So one more minute. Okay. So we're going to walk around with a microphone again and decide who wants to share out from each table group. We'll pick on someone over here.
I know it's not fun, but the people online can't hear if we're not in a microphone.
Okay, so we talked about educating voters. There's a stat in here that talks about that people just don't know what the condition of the schools are. So we really need to focus on educating the voters as to what that looks like. I think the district's done a good job of doing that, but we have to keep continuing doing that. And then we also talked a lot about like Kelly's numbers that she just pulled up. You know, if you have a $500,000 assessed value home, which is actually a really nice home in the Estacada district, it's only going to cost you, you know, $90. If you go to the $109 million bond, it's only going to cost you $800 and some a year. People don't know that. Like, they need to know those numbers. They don't want to hear the 39 cents per thousand. They don't know what that means. And so I think if we get true concrete numbers out to people and then they go, oh, well, I can afford that, then that will open up doors for conversation.
We had the same sort of talk over here. How do we get the community to know what the schools are like? A lot of families are new coming into the community, and I, for one, have been here 10 years, but have never been in the middle school, has no idea what it looks like. So how do we do we do videos to show the community what our schools are like and hope that they watch them? Maybe encourage parents to talk to their kids that are in the schools, how they feel about their comfort level inside the schools. But yeah, basically bring facts to the community that are unaware of what our schools are actually like.
Well, thank you. All right. So our table discussed more or less telling our story better, you know, what we have done, the things you can't see, touch, smell, or hear that we invest in that community may not know. And again, we kind of just revisited how proud we are to be part of the community, but also doing it right. You know, if we're going to have this opportunity again, that we just want to make sure that we just do it right the first time. You know, you buy cheap, you get cheap.
Oh my gosh. Kissing up before you ask me to speak is not nice. We talked a little bit about some of the graphs. People brought up the idea of like the I don't know category. I mentioned to this table the really cool tours that the district are doing right now and how that could potentially exponentially bleed out to other people in the community that aren't able to go on the tours but have access to the people who did, since some of them are community members, not just people who work in the district themselves. You mentioned that there was an interest in like just looking at how drastic of a change of support came and like positivity versus negativity towards the district overall. And then just looking at, we talked a little bit about like ageism in the sense of like who our supporters are, like who are we actually speaking to, and obviously there's a couple different pieces in here that look at compared to the yeses and the nos, some of those demographic elements. It was kind of curious, like just thinking about like how much our population has grown. I've only been here for 4 years, but in 4 years it's grown 2,000 and we started at 3,000. So it's like there's a huge growth, and that doesn't even take into consideration how many projects are coming that haven't even been known by the public maybe yet. And that brings down our demographic average age. So like thinking about a bond, thinking about the different things that we're going to be talking about, my curiosity is also like whether like all of us are like, oh, high school, that sounds great. But if a lot of young families are coming in, is the bond going to be more, or, you know, that kind of ask more towards the younger families in elementary that's newer? So some of those things are curiosities as well. Anything else, Dennis?
We kind of talked a lot about the same things that everybody else has too, and one of our focuses was, you know, if we are going to build a high school, we want to have as much involvement, and it would be nice to see maybe what it would look like beforehand to ensure that we're, you know, taking into consideration all the needs of the students and the teachers and everything like that before it actually happens, and maybe that's part of educating the voter kind of thing too. We talked about. We talked a lot about the no votes, and of course the top one being now is not the right time, and it's never the right time. So we talked about that as well. What else? Oh yeah, because one of the numbers on here is concerned about fraud and waste, and we didn't like that because, I mean, I think we all feel that our district is very transparent in everything moving forward, and ever since I've been here for 5+ years. So why that's there, it would be interesting to learn why do they think that, and then go back to the educating side as well. So, oh, actually, can I ask one? Maybe this is kind of piggybacking on it because I thought about this. At the last bond, there was the matching grant. Is that going to be an option too? Because that was
I'll answer. That's a wonderful question. And so last time we were eligible for a matching grant from the state of Oregon that's called the Awesome Grant, and we were eligible for $4 million. Unfortunately, we only get those funds if we pass a bond, so we did leave $4 million on the table last time that our bond did not pass. It's a lottery on whether or not we get picked, so we will apply for that again if we go out for a bond again. And good news is what you are doing right now is part of the process. In order to be eligible for those Awesome Grant funds, we have to check some boxes for the state of Oregon, and one of those is having a long-range plan. So thank you all for helping us potentially go out for the Awesome Grant funds. That would be $4 million again if we were to get selected. And again, it's a lottery with all the other districts that are going out for a bond at the same time in the state of Oregon.
Just a technical question about the methodology. Was this a landline survey?
Great question. So I think there's a stat in there if you dive really deep on the percent of people that are landline versus cell phone, but we specifically look for that because whatever it is about people that answer their landlines versus their cell phones, they give very different answers. So yeah, that's something that we try and get diversity on.
Does the Awesome Grant have to be used in a certain way for certain things, or can we choose whatever we want to spend that money on?
It goes towards the bond projects, but Christina, do you want to talk a little bit more?
Yeah, the Awesome Grant has to match what our bond package is. So we have to, how we are meeting with you guys and we write our bond is how we have to spend all the money, including the Awesome.
Thank you.
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
I didn't go into depth on my role as the community liaison, but those of you that are asking questions about like how do we get the word out and how do we let our community become more knowledgeable, that's me, part of me. So that's the goal. I think our school does an amazing job communicating within our group and the people that have children in the district, and they know, and they are transparent, and maybe we even over communicate, but there is definitely a group of people that are not getting to know what is happening around here, and that's going to be my role, is to get out there. So I'm open to any suggestions. We don't need to have it open forum about it, but if you ever want to just chat with me about what ideas you have so that we can hit those niche groups that our survey did like point out, we can see the people that don't know. And I think knowledge is power in this situation. So let me know.
Thank you for adding that. I also want to empower you guys that are sitting at this table. If you'll look at the sources where people in this community get their news from, number one is local TV news, which is tough. We've had some wonderful news stories that cover the Estacada School District, but we don't get a primetime spot on K2 News or KGW or Fox or CNN or whatever people are watching. But the number two news source in our community is Friends and Neighbors. So you guys play a really important role in telling the story of our district as well. So thank you for being here tonight and learning more so you can help us tell our story. I do want to turn it over now, I think, to Mike Ware to talk about the next document, our facility condition assessment.
Okay, real quick, facility condition assessment, comprehensive assessment of all of our assets, our buildings, such as our windows, our HVAC systems, our parking lots, fences, grounds, irrigation. It's a process that lasts over a few weeks. And then the auditors, if you will, the people, the firm that completes the assessment provides a summary report and a full comprehensive workbook. We're going to send you the workbook, and it's a bit overwhelming. And those of you who are not, Google Sheet or Excel savvy, don't worry about it. We're going to look at this next time. But I felt that it'd be good for some of you to see the workbook, to see where all the 1,500, well, about 1,200 or so or more assets that were counted, 12,000 rather, that were counted, and where their condition is in their assessment, okay? Again, you can't, there's a lot of formulas in there, you can't break it, and we'll have the final copy, so it'll be your own little copy that we'll share out with you. So Ben, have fun, okay? Okay. So we're going to talk about the other handout in your document. Really quick, I just wanted to give a couple just high-level overviews of a few things. Our asset condition is ranked on a 1 to 5. 1 being excellent condition, 5 being the worst. So you'll see that towards the back pages of this summary, which we'll give you time to look at in a few minutes, on what the condition and the average condition of the middle school is. And that basically is they're taking every asset, HVAC, kitchen equipment, your lighting, your flooring, they're rating each one of those, and then we'll get an average of all that. I will say, and you'll see it in a summary report, that most of our schools, and we'll see it here in a minute, are in the poor condition section or very poor condition section. We have some fair areas, but mainly poor and very poor. So 1 to 5, going from there. You'll also see in there a facility condition index, okay? This is an index that's calculated using a combination of conditions and the replacement costs of the building. So, for example, renewal cost over the next 10 years divided by the building cost, replacement value. That gives you a condition index. Again, it's another rating that we use to be able to see where our buildings or assets at. On the right-hand side, you'll see, this is in your packet as well, our current FCI. They're all in the orange and red. The FCI does not include parking lots, ground spaces, fences. It's just the building and the assets within that building, just FYI. Because if you include those things, which we do, you'll see on the workbook that you can, it jumps up your price quite a bit on total need, okay? And I'll give some time for questions here before we move into discussion. And then this is important to talk about. So this is one of our schools. I think this might be our high school. You'll see it in the packet. But it's important to look at this in 2 different ways. The top graph is net present value. So when our assessment was completed, the assessors, or the people who completed the assessment, said that there's $5.4 million in need in 2022 at this particular school. If the district invested $5.4 million in need in 2022, in 2024, there's only, well, not only, but there's another 5.3, that 5? Or 6.3 million, right? And then if we invested that 6.3 million in 2025, there's no need. That's based off the condition of the asset and the replacement year, right? And so again, if something needs to be replaced in 2024, then it would be listed there. Yes, Danny?
Can you define what replacement means? That's not an upgrade, correct?
That is not an upgrade. It's replacing like for like. Right, thank you. Most of the things that you'll see in the workbook is replaced, not repair. Everything's past its expected life cycle. And what we do, though, when the assessment is completed, the firm also looks at if the district has, or whomever, the district has been taking care of the system. So if we've been doing routine preventative maintenance on an HVAC that has a life cycle of 30 years, but it's in decent condition, that might up our observed life cycle, all right, replacement value, replacement life cycle, okay? So as you see at the bottom graph, this is where it gets kind of scary. A cumulative replacement value without any investment. So if we don't invest anything in 2023, that jumps over to 2024 with that 5% inflation, all right? So you can see how the numbers can kind of add up really quickly. And we will go into the 10-year, and you'll see it in your doc, 10-year and 30-year, what those numbers look like. But what the assessment also is stating is that a district of our size and with the need that would need to maintain and continue our assets to be in good condition, we would need to dedicate $3.9 million every year to stay on track, right? If that was in a perfect world, we cannot do that. We're not able to do that. And so that's where a lot of these things have built up. On page, I just wanted to show one more thing. On page 7 of your document, you'll see a 5-year total of need of $31.2 million. So John had asked about, okay, does the $89 million get us to school? What's left over? What's going to go towards that? $31 million would go towards just replacing like-for-like systems to make sure that they're operable, they're safe. We have a clean, warm, safe, dry school for our students. 2022, this year, there's a $15 million need. If we did nothing, all the need that we have, it would go over to 2023 and add to that $13 million. With 5%, it's about 31-ish million or so, and you'll see it in the workbook, okay? What questions do you have before I give you some time to look at this document? It's a lot.
So I think you were just talking about, you take the 15 million,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't do it, then you have the 15 million plus the 13 million?
Yes. Because what they're saying in year 2022, there's 15 million in need based off the asset replacement life cycle or the condition of it. The condition or the impact could be a high 5, right? And we also, you'll see in the doc, we rate it by, again, condition and the impact to the occupants, and our occupants are students, right? So if it has a higher impact, if it went down, how would it impact our students? It's going to have a higher rating in terms of the condition of it. If that makes sense. Yes.
How soon are bond funds available?
I'm
Can
going
we use them instantly as soon as something passes, or is it like 5 years down the road
No.
we can finally do something?
I'll let Christina answer that one.
That is a great question. So once we pass the bond, we then will go and sell the bonds. And then at that point, the money becomes available, and we'll make a plan on how we will cost that out. And that's when we'll make the money available for us. So typically, if we go out for May, we would probably go sell the bonds June, and then they will be available come July 1st. Yes?
If you do that, but you don't have the buildings already designed and planned, and, you know, all the features in the building's already done, then it's gonna be an additional timeout. You have money, but you don't have plans.
Yeah, we won't more than likely go and spend all that money right up front. We will make a plan on how we will put that money in play. And then also, Director Wheeler pointed out, a little bit just like Mike's saying, 3 million to fix the buildings, 3.9 millions. Well, I'm going to tell you, as the budget person, we do not have that a year to contribute to our buildings. Our funding that we get is mostly goes directly into teaching and learning. And then how we are able to maintain our buildings is by what we call CET tax. So any permit that is billed or any permit that is issued in our area, we get money from the city and the county, and we put that directly into our facilities budget, and that's only could be spent on upgrading or maintaining our buildings. And that's right now the only way we are able to maintain our buildings. And that varies this year. I'm projecting that to be about 300,000.
Just to kind of piggyback on her answer to you, we would form that oversight committee once we pass the bond, which would develop, okay, we would need to procure firms for architectural engineering, determine what's the first phase of our implementation of the bond. So even though we pass it in May and we get the money in July, it would take some time, but time is not in our hands because of inflation and everything else. But we would progressively move quickly, as quickly as we could. No? No. Yes. No, we still get those. We still get that CET money every time there's a new permit that comes through. That's always a constant. That's how schools build their capital improvement plan, or budget, rather.
So let's say, perfect world, we pass this 109 million. We get the bond. Is 300,000 budget going to continue to maintain all the new facilities?
Well, so it's two different funding sources. So maintaining comes out of John's budget, which is the maintenance facilities budget. So when we look at maintaining, that's something internal that we budget every year, and we take account for inflation and additional costs. So if it's existing, we maintain it. If it's something new or something that we want to change and it increases the price or the asset value, that's capital improvement. And so that 300,000 that Christina mentioned that we're going to get this year is lower than we're typically used to. I think do you know how much we're down? Lower than we're normally expected? No, not top of your, yeah. Not a percentage, yeah. 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 I will say that we did build our capital improvement budget up over a number of 5, 6, 7 years. And then we built it up to be healthy. And then we started putting in more investment into safety, into the safe facilities. So, and so now we're kind of working on building that thing back up. We're being more mindful fiscally on our maintenance side too, to try to be preventative than reactive. And so that's kind of where we kind of balance the two budgets there. Good question. Yes, John.
Could,
just say it.
They can't hear the people. I need to be heard. We get a bond. We're waiting for architecture, all that stuff. We could still move forward with the smaller projects of updating the other buildings that we don't need engineering for, or would we need to wait for the main purchase of the bond, and then after that is done, then we would take that other money and
Yeah,
invest it
that's a good question. I think, again, it comes back to the oversight committee on where are the phase of implementation. Certainly, if there's things that we can do and procure out that is less money that we are able to handle, because we're not sure, like, in terms of how all this is going to be managed. We'll have the oversight committee. Will we be bringing in a project manager? Will it be you and I, John? So there's some discussions there and questions I can't answer this time, but. All right, so I want to give you just, again, another 5-7 minutes to look through that document. On the back end of the document, it has each school summarized with some pictures. It gives you replacement value, gives you the average FCI. Take a look at that. We'll come back just again to wrap up because we have about 12 minutes. So we'll give you 6 minutes to review, and then we'll wrap it up, get out of here early. Okay, we're gonna bring you back. It's only got 5 minutes. I want to respect your guys' evening on a Tuesday, and it's probably gonna snow soon. And I got to get up at 3:30 to drive the roads. So, any discussion, any kind of questions that came out of your group? Well, we won't go around the group again, since we've done that plenty of time, and spare Chris and everybody else from talking again. But is there anything that came out of just review of the document? Yes.
Just something that personally gave me, like I said, it gave me heartburn at this table. It's not the tacos, I promise. It's the fact that Clackamas River, the newest school, has as terrible of a rating as the rest, which makes me feel like, what was that money invested in? I think it's a cautionary message for when we're talking about bond funds.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're right. Chris?
I think it's also interesting, like when you have like visuals such as the graphs that you're showing here, where there's explanations with them versus just standalone. When we're talking about communication for any purpose, whether it's going towards a bond or just getting our community out of that don't know category, like visuals are so much more helpful than lists of numbers, right?
Yeah.
And looking at where we have this, where it's the FCA, where it's telling us, as she mentioned, the foundation's bad at CRE, or these other things that we wouldn't have expected for such a young school. This amount of money, if we don't do something, and having something that could equate to academic, because the hard part is like we don't want to come down on our district. Like we're doing a lot with a little, and yet what's the detriment if we don't? Like we can see monetarily what the detriment is to our buildings. What are we going to start seeing as a decline visually that we can quantify or qualify for people to also see for that future as well? It's a curiosity I have.
Okay.
Because for some who have kids that are younger, right, they need to see the future and have a little bit of that prediction versus just the building might not have air conditioning.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay. All right, so we're going to wrap it up for the evening. Our next meeting will be March 7th at 6 p.m. in the same spot with food and our happy faces. We will dive into the FCA heavily. We'll start talking about those needs. We will come back to the next meeting with a recap, just in case we get some new people. Start off on our core values, making sure that we're ready to go, and then hit the ground running, and we'll put you to work. So with that, I hope you have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.